Hey everyone, welcome back to 90 Degree Turns, where we expand the minds, beliefs, and perspectives of the collective. I'm your host, Trisha Margus, and today we have the awesome pleasure of speaking with Sharry Edwards. So Sharry is the acknowledged pioneer in the emerging field of vocal profiling using BioAcoustic Biology. For many years, she has provided the leading-edge research to show the voice as a holographic representation of the body that can be used to change the face of medicine. Her work has been the subject of several documentaries, and she is the recipient of the Scientist of the Year award by the New Frontiers of Science. She is a faculty emeritus at the Capital University of Integrative Medicine. Sharry asks that we imagine a future to which we can be individually identified and maintained through the use of frequency-based biomarkers that keep us healthy and emotionally balanced. Her work at the Integrative of BioAcoustic Biology has shown that we can have dominion over those frequencies by individual mind management, or a simple remote control that is completely programmable using the unique technique of vocal profiling evaluation. Emotional as well as physiological issues can be revealed and addressed.
It's just great to see you again. Thank you for thinking this is important enough to be part of what you're sharing with your audience. I certainly appreciate it. And I love the way that we got together and you appreciated what we were doing, and you're interested in how we are creating the medicine of the future. Actually, I don't think we're really creating it. I think it's just creating itself, and we're just trying to keep up with it. So it's really good to be able to share this.
Well, thank you, Sharry, for coming on. I'm very excited. I think the work that you do is incredibly unique, and I think give us a very interesting perspective on what's going on in our world and understanding more about the world than we know right now. So let's kind of jump into, for those who are new to your work, Sharry, can you tell us about kind of how you founded this BioAcoustic Biology Research Institute and what brought you to this line of work?
Well, there's two different stories there, one very esoteric and one very scientific. The esoteric one is that I was raised in the Appalachia, up in the hills, no electricity, no running water and all that. So I had this very unique hearing experience that I grew up with, that I was hearing the animals and the trees and the nature. And so they think that's why a organ in my ear has become open. It's usually dominant in most people, but it's called a sacculus, and dolphins have it, and I hear differently from most people. Now, I could back up and tell you some other stories that would not make people fearful, but I remember when I started hearing the sounds. And I was 5 years old, and my cousin and I were walking down this hill. We were walking from the cornfields, and we saw over in the woods this silver, big, round thing, and it had this dancing picture on it, which I now know is a hologram. And we started to go toward it, and I don't remember ever getting there. But the next thing I remember, we were walking, holding hands, and we'd take a step, and we'd go boing up over the trees. And my head was spinning, and I was saying, what if this quits while we're up here? But from that point on, that's when I remember starting to hear the sounds of other people, of animals, of things, of hearing music in my ears that other people didn't hear. And when something would happen, somebody'd have a headache or something, a song would come, a humming would come to me, and I'd do that, and the migraines would go away, blood would stop oozing out of wounds. I remember a really bad wound. My brother was chopped with an axe. And so I don't know if that is a real story. I did write to Ruth Montgomery, a writer, when I got older, and ask her about the experience, because she wrote a book, Aliens Among Us. And I thought, well, maybe there's two of me in here, because sometimes I'm allergic to oranges and sometimes it's not. And sometimes my shoe was a size different, and sometimes I could do this and sometimes I couldn't. So I just thought, well, there's somebody else in here. That other person didn't vacate because it was about walk-ins.
Mm-hmm.
But I just began to keep this to myself because it scared my relatives. I remember Aunt Georgie, somebody asked her a question and I answered for her. And she said, I didn't say that out loud. I thought it, but I didn't say it, you little witch. You know, and stuck her fingers up at me and a cross to protect herself.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I learned to bury it and to bury some very important things about my life and what I could do. And from there, I would just keep quiet and listen to what was going on around me because people became afraid of me if I opened my mouth. But I cheated. In school, I could ask the teacher a question about something we test or something we're doing, and the teacher would think about the answer, and then I'd get it right. So I cheated, but I also kept it to myself because it scared people. And only when I got older and got married, still kept it to myself, my husband finally found out what was going on and what I was thinking and feeling. People just thought I was really psychic, but I just kept that to myself. And now we know the biochemistry of being psychic, so anybody can do it. We just increase the adenocyclase for them and they become more sensitive. And that's not always an easy thing either, because you have to be very thin-skinned to pick up what's going on, but very thick-skinned to be able to handle it when they have a thought like, well, you're really ugly or something like that. And that did happen. A guy came up to me, we were in Sedona doing a speech, and he came up to the podium, or the little stand I was on with the podium, and he said, you're too ugly to be on stage. And I thought, well, he's no Robert Redford either. So he was bald-headed around. I could see the top of his head, very short, long stringy hair, and sort of looked like a troll. And that's what I thought, you know, you're no Robert Redford either. And so I decided to give him back the question. And I said, well, what do you think I could do about it? He said, nothing. You look like my mother and I hate her too.
Goodness.
So whose problem was it? It was his issue that he felt safe to share with me. He wanted to tell somebody that he hated his mother. And I don't remember what I said back to him, but it turned everything around because it wasn't about me being ugly. It was about he needing to share something about his mother. And that taught me a really big lesson about what people are saying and what they're saying behind their words. And when I went to school, I started looking at that and actually created a computer program called Nano Voice, Nano, little voice, because what people were saying with their words was not what was coming out behind the scenes. And so we tested this when I was in undergraduate school, and I wrote the program so that people could really look at the truth behind what people were saying. And I was so naive that I thought people really wanted to know what was going on. So people, it's just an oddity that you can be saying something and here are the words, and then you read the printout of what the words were saying behind the scene, and sometimes it's a whole new world. But it allows people to get in touch with their private selves, but they have to be really open to that. Not a lot of people are. They don't want to know the truth. And I think that if people knew the truth, we would have complete chaos for a while. Marriages would go awry, relationships, we wouldn't need the legal system. I thought that was a good deal. And so I put it up on the internet and I gave it away. We've given hundreds, thousands of copies of this. You can go on our site, soundhealthportal.com, Portal, and right on the front page, if you have a microphone, you can talk to this little nano voice and you can see which job you really want, which one gives you the most harmonics and the most notes and levels you out. And I thought the world would embrace that. They'd really love it. boy, was that a rude awakening. People don't want to know the truth, or they want it hidden if they do know it. But think about how much people revere their privacy. They don't want you to know. And sometimes they can't even stand to know what they truly believe underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first rose-colored wish for the world. That's sort of fell apart.
But I think it's better to go after something like that and to realize, I mean, you were able to discover the truth by pursuing that kind of passion and understanding, And unfortunately, the naivety of it kind of, I'm sure, was a shock, but I think that kind of understanding ultimately is better for your own growth as well.
Well, they want the truth from you. They don't necessarily want you to have the truth from them. So that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun. And I do a lot of evaluations of political people and find out where they're really coming from and what their motivations are. And I think we have a right to know that. So a lot of people are following it that way.
I have seen some of your other interviews where I think you analyzed. It was a little bit while ago that I saw, but yeah, you had a lot of different vocal profilings of politicians and that were in the media, and I thought it was fascinating that you're able to decipher with your program exactly what someone is saying in the undertone of their voice. Because, like you said, they could be saying one thing right now, but their intentions it can be literally written and discovered through their vocal profile. It's fascinating.
Before Meghan and Harry got married, we did an evaluation of their relationship, and it said in there definitely that Meghan is in charge and she will dictate what's going on in the marriage. And that's exactly what's going on there. Back in Canada, it's happening her way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it would have made a difference to Harry if he knew that before it was going on, but you can look at compatibilities and see where you have an issue. We had a couple come in and they couldn't get along, and she had a lot of F and F sharp, and that's male sexuality. He had nearly none. So that was their problem. She wanted it, he didn't want to deliver. That's a polite way to say it, I hope.
Yeah.
But we can really look at our own motives and what we think we are and what we think, or where our fears are. And it'll tell you each note has a designation of a list of emotions. Just like in a song, when people are singing, they hit a sour note, and it wrenches my my backbone. So when you're looking at this and you want to know about your health and you don't have any notes of D, you probably got a liver issue, or an F, kidneys, or an A, eyes. And so this little computer program will tell you. And you can look at about 3 years in advance. They can also buy this program if they want. They can use it for free, but they can also buy it for their computer. Set up a whole business about compatibility. I think it ends up being based on astrology. Didn't start out that way, but astrology somehow knew how this group of people talk this way, knew that, or their favorite color was here, because it's all frequency, emotions and light and color and shape of a room. It's all about frequency. And the really in tune ancient people knew that set of people who were that color in their aura were compatible, and this group was compatible. So they put it down in terms of astrology. Now we're doing it in terms of people's voices.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a song, you have notes, and they're compatible with this and not that.
Yeah, and so you can build like a harmony based on the different sounds. So then I would love to know, like, was Nikola Tesla, was that any inspiration for the work you've done? Because he talks about energy and frequency and vibration. Did any of his work kind of fall into your lap when you were kind of creating this institute and thinking of, because you've created this program, correct? This is your like baby. This is your product that you can kind of help the world understand more about what's actually going on.
Well, I think it comes from my unusual hearing and knowing what people were thinking in general terms, and sometimes very specific terms. in picking out a word, but I can't do it on call. Nikola Tesla, when I first started, I couldn't get any information about him. The United States, even libraries wouldn't allow me to borrow things. I had to borrow things through Canada. And now there's more information really free, but I really think he had more of an influence after I got going so that I could share how it was happening more than he inspired me to do it in the beginning. I just thought I was schizophrenic or something, and I wanted to find out what sounds I were hearing and what they meant. I was so lucky. I got a job during school at a speech and hearing lab. And when I was helping some of the professors type and write papers and stuff, it was hearing sounds are really an illness. And so they tested my hearing and found out my hearing's off the scale high. I have very low loss, but very high gain. And they don't know why. And what we can't seem to get to is, how do you create a thought? A thought that tells you you're jealous, or that you're happy, or that you want to share. We know that by testing your brain, certain frequencies come to the surface. Some of Jose Delgado's work, he can create emotions in the brain by putting magnetic potentials, wires to the brain. How does that get created? He was able to map, okay, this is what it is, and this is kind of what they were feeling, but nobody can tell us how that emotion, that thought, how it was created. And until we can do that, we can't explain what we're doing.
So do you feel like then thoughts are our own, or do they come from somewhere else?
I think both. Here's an example with my husband. We lived down about a quarter of a mile lane. The mailbox was at the end. And he came home, it was like midnight or so, and I was meditating. And as soon as he walked in the door, he sat down in his chair and was flipping through this magazine. And above my head was this word in red neon lights, HYPERBOLE. I'd never seen the word before. And I said, what does hyperbole mean? Now, we hadn't spoken any words between us. And then I heard him think, you mean hyperbole? I said, okay, hyperbole. But he didn't voice those words. He said, get up and come in here. And he was looking at some car, some old fancy car, and there was a word above it, hyperbole, in these red letters. So that's a type of communication, but nobody can explain it. I think you just have to be open to it. And a lot of people are not open enough to allow people in, so all the secrets spill out. It's just part of us.
I think it's part of the human condition, is being vulnerable. It's a huge level of vulnerability.
Well, where did it come about that privacy should be kept close to you and not tell anybody your secrets? Where did that come about? I think privacy is illusion. I think everybody knows, they're just too polite to tell you.
That's a very interesting observation.
There'll come a day when it'll be open for all of us. It'll be hard getting there, but it'll be a wonderful day, because that's what people think. They really want everything open and truthful until you start talking to them and really digging into it. And then, no, that's my secret. I get to keep that.
And they start shutting down. Yeah. I mean, it's something that I think as a collective we'd have to work our way towards.
Well, that little nano voice, it doesn't keep your words. It only keeps the sounds, each note of your voice. So even if somebody got in your computer, they'd never know what you said to it. They'd only know the results. So you can talk to this little program about anything, and it'll tell you the truth, but it'll keep your secrets.
Look at that. Wow. So, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Sherry. So, today on our episode, I would love to discuss about the coronavirus that has been sweeping the world in kind of a panic. And I feel like there's a lot of different news sources and just a whole mountain of information that can be contradictory. I feel people are scared that they're going to die, and then they don't want to travel, or some people aren't even worried. They think maybe this is a completely just media craze and it's just another thing to scare people for a little while till the next big media craze happens. So based on the myriad amount of information that is coming around us, I would love to get your take on what you think about the coronavirus. Do you feel that this virus was or are you able to expose or tell us if the virus was made with was first of all man-made, created, and how the tones of frequency that through your program show us if it's organic or man-made, and why it matters?
I want to back up one step and marry these two concepts. The idea that each word you speak tells us something about your personality. It also tells us about your physiology, your psychology, your biochemistry. So we just over the years begin to look at that. And so not only does the sounds of your voice tell us what your perceptions are, but it tells you, is this a liver issue? Is it a heart issue? And we just did that by trial and error. And we've been doing this for about 40 years. So in the last 10 years, we've been helping people with a seasonal flu. And we would get from the CDC, Center for Disease Control, what flu was coming up, and we would make antidotes. And we put out a song about it to help people who had congestion in their lungs and bronchioles. And it was working for people. So along came this coronavirus, and people said, we need one for this. And so I started looking at it. It was a surprise to me that the coronavirus didn't look like the flu. It didn't look like a bacteria or a virus. It acted completely different. When we test you for eye problems, there's a matrix of numbers, like a Sudoku grid, that tells us, okay, that's immune system, or that's the heart, or whatever. And we learned from the immune system that 14, 19, and 17 are three numbers that come up in the grid if it's a virus or bacteria. Particularly 28, the double of the 14, come up, and that wasn't coming up with this virus. We didn't have very many vocal prints at the time, and we started looking at it in the grid, and it said, this is an allergy. This is not a virus or a flu, it's an allergy. Because when we first started looking at it, we were able to decode the gene and decode the protein. The gene comes in, sets up household, and the proteins, its byproducts, that's what makes you sick. So as we begin looking at it, if we antidoted the gene, it activated the protein. So that to me meant this is a man-made thing. And especially since both of the notes that we used, and we decoded this totally different or out of the way of looking at our boxes of numbers. It was in an octave, like we use 220 and 440 for the note of A. This was in the scale of 224, and it was the A and the A sharp, which that's what attacks our immune system. Nature would not have made, I don't think, it'd be one in a bazillion. Nature just doesn't make things like that. When you look at the antidotes for nature-made colds and whatever, it's bizarre, like heavy metal or jazz. The stuff just doesn't seem to go together. But with this, it was almost like it was classical music. So that it's in the same octave, that doesn't happen. It's two notes in the same octave that deal with the immune system, that doesn't happen. So that makes me think it's man-made. And there's some other things that we later learned that makes us think that it's man-made. But whoever made this, they were very, very intelligent. I would say this is an artificial intelligent set of numbers that go together. But when we started looking at this, and first there was a couple of proteins. Okay, we can deal with that. Then there was 8 proteins, like different strains, and all of these numbers kept running into each other as clashes that didn't match. And it was the proteins that was causing problem. Then there's 14. And then there was no way we could make antidotes because they all ran into each other. So when we switched it to this is an allergy, it all made sense. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I want to clarify then. You're saying that I want to just understand more with more for like layman's terms. What specifically, when you say that there was clashing with the numbers 14 and 28, this is showing up on the program that you're using?
Yes.
Correct? And so what is that? Forgive me, but what does that mean though? Does that mean that it's not configuring with the typical shape of a true virus, and that it's
Yes.
showing like outstanding kind of data that is unusual?
Yes, it matched what we know to be antibodies and number sets that dealt with pollen and nut allergies and things like that. It didn't match what went with bacteria.
So it's being categorized in a completely different section as an allergen rather than a
I
virus.
think so. But again, I'm not a medical person. I just know the numbers. So as we begin to look at, more and more questions came in. I sent you some of them. And we started looking at this as an allergy. So up came vitamin C and linolenic acid and glutathione. The numbers that are missing and don't make sense to look at this as a flu is because glutathione, quercetin, and vitamin C are all in stress. That happens with allergies. It also happens with pathogens, but not in the same way. So the glutathione frequencies were left out of this gene. Quercetin frequencies are the same set as the gene for this the virus. So we couldn't give you nutrients to counteract this because that just activated it more. So when we begin to look at it as if this is an allergy, and we got 2 numbers that we knew were going to be part of all of this, they're the 2 and 3 numbers that we deal with allergens all the time. And when we put them together, one's an F and one's an F sharp, I believe. The distance between them, because what happens to your ears, if you hear a sound on this side and then a sound on this side, your brain brings them together. It subtracts them. And the subtractions of these 2 numbers was vitamin C. And the other thing it does is average the 2 notes. And the average of it was this corona gene. And we started giving people these frequencies. First, just normal run-of-the-mill people who had flu-like symptoms just in our area, our community. And what it did was dry up their mouth, and like they had an overdose of vitamin C, and loosen their bowels like an overdose of vitamin C. So we were giving people frequencies that were acting in the body like they were a nutrient. And James Marshall's been on a lot of shows with me recently. He took Accutane and it dissolved his bowel. He was an actor, lots of movies, and he had a show on TV every week. What do you call that? A series?
A series.
And this Accutane dissolved his bowel. And after 2 years in the hospital, I sent him home and said, go home and die. We can't do anything more for you. And he heard me on Coast to Coast one night. And he called me up and he said, this is what's happened to me. Can you help? I said, I don't know. We're just following along. We don't know what we can do. And we were able, and he says this right on the shows. We were able to feed him vitamins and keep him alive. And he went from like 80 pounds to 130, and he's back to work and he's composing music. He composed one of the songs we can give away free to your audience if you'd like, and it's the one that helps people with pneumonia. It's called La Ciel, L-E, next word C-I-E-L, means the sky, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really been proven to help people over the years that had sinus and mucus. So we're doing something with people's biochemistry. We just don't quite know what.
I think that's fascinating that we're able, that you guys are able to take something like a nutrient, a vitamin C, instead of taking a physical supplement, you can literally supplement it with a sound frequency.
We
And
can also,
through a device. I mean, that's something I feel like that is such a cutting edge concept. I mean, look at all the nutrient stores and supplement vitamin stores that are all around the country, right? Like, and you can take in it's food in that way. You can take it in supplement form in little pills, but through sound and frequency, I feel like that's way more easier to like digest through our body. And you can see the different results directly. I mean, this person's life was able to be completely altered by ingesting these sounds and frequencies.
but again, it was trial and error. We didn't know what we were doing and still don't. But we've been able to help people reverse macular degeneration by giving them different forms of the vitamin A they couldn't use for their eyes. We've been able to regrow tissue and teeth, but it's all accidentally. We can repeat it, but we don't know how we got there in the first place. And that's why we teach this to people. We have free classes, free 2-day classes, and you're signed up for our professional class, so that's going to be awesome. And we can teach people to do this on their own. I can't possibly see everybody that needs to be seen. So we want to teach everybody so they can take it back to their community. And the first class is free, so they don't have any excuse. Oh, that's too much money. That's this. We give you the software to work with and to play with just to get you started. And you can do nutrition reports for your neighbors or whatever and earn enough money to take the next step up and open a whole bioacoustic center. That's my rose-colored wish for the world. But we can't get FDA approval because we don't know how it's happening. But they had aspirin on the shelves many years before they knew how it really worked.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2004 or something like that. They finally figured out how aspirin worked. So they're not following all the same rules. I'm very glad that we aren't under FDA rules, because we can do kind of strange things and experiments, like sticking somebody under a pyramid and see if their voice changes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would like it to be under full government funding, because then the insurance would pay for it and everybody can afford it.
Yeah, it could be considered like a medical procedure by then.
Yeah.
They could reach a lot more people.
Well, if they take us to court and prove it's not medicine, they'll have to leave us alone.
Mm-hmm.
And if they prove it is medicine, then we'll get all kinds of grant money and stuff to study. MIT and the Mayo Clinic both are using this right now, vocal profiling, to see what's going on. We did a grant for the government about acoustic blasts for soldiers when they stepped on a mine or somebody near them stepped on a mine.
Mm-hmm.
What did that do to their brain? Could they go back into combat? Did they need to go back to the barracks or wherever? And so they're now testing it on soldiers. And there's a thing where they put soldiers in a room, gas them, and then make them take off their gas masks. And some of the soldiers really get damaged lungs. If we took their vocal print beforehand, we could tell which of the soldiers were going to get damaged. And so it's a way to look at things that are going to happen or what's a weakness in the body. I'd really like to do it in the nursery for crying babies. Then we know what to look for. What's a weakness with that baby?
That'd be fascinating to see. And you could, if there are any I guess, discrepancies in the audio voice, then you could help them before they even get to like a 2-year-old toddler stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
incredible.
and we could
Potential
test
seed.
products. Look at glyphosate. That interferes with glutathione. Glutathione interferes, well, it helps the body detox. So the glyphosate interferes with glutathione so you don't detox, so all the trash stays in the body. Glutathione deals with infertility. It deals with heavy metals. It deals with vaccines. So the glutathione is an incredibly important piece of our immune system. And that's another thing that makes me think this is man-made, because it attacks the immune system. Was it deliberate, or is mankind just so dumb they won't take care of their own environment?
I guess with that we'll have to see what what ends up happening though. But to jump back then into the coronavirus. So I know that in one of your articles you've mentioned that there's a inhibitor of T cell activation, and
Mm-hmm.
something called 9/11 toxins. So could
That
you
one is Murex.
okay,
That
so could you explain what that means? What is the significance of having T cells inhibited, and what are 9/11 toxins? How does that impact our body, and
well,
why should we
they're
know about it?
just like your electric wires in your house.
Mhm.
They give off a frequency, and it's toxic and makes you sick. And then glutathione isn't available enough, and it's made of cysteine, glycine, and glutamate. There's not enough. The body doesn't detox. The body also needs nitric oxide, because that acts as the wall between your meat and your capillaries that drain off the garbage. And so what we've done is take all these pieces, all these toxins that come up in your house, and we put them in a database and put it online for people, so they can give us 30 seconds of their voice and just a microphone. And they have to have the right microphone, and it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. And it'll spit out a report that'll tell them you have too much Murex, which is the coating on electric things. So we'd have them move that away from their bed. Oh, well, you don't have enough glutathione. So we'd say, well, let's look at what kind. If it's glutathione S transferase, then that's immune system. If it's glutathione peroxidase, then that whatever attacks them is going to attack their bowel. So we can see by the pieces in your voice that are too high or too low, and then we can give you the report, and you can take it to your wellness provider or to your health food store or whoever you trust, your mother, and it'll tell you what you need to do. You may not have the stuff available, like with the glutathione, just use reduced glutathione. But there's another thing called clathin, I believe, CLATHIN. It helps the body coat the cell so that the pathogen can't enter. It wears away the protective coat. So we want to give that to people. You can't go buy it, so we give it to people by sound. There's enzymes that are involved, and zinc and other things, and some you can buy over the counter and some you can't. So we're always short of trainers and teachers. We want a bioacoustic center in every community. That's why we're willing to train people for free. But I just have too much to do. We don't have enough people who can dive in and do it. And I think the people who are running the country, there's a difference in callous and compassionate capitalists. So you've got all these people who are saying, we don't have enough vitamin C, we're going to have to ration it. So we've got people who are in it for the money, insulin and whatever, even with Obamacare. And Bloomberg said this, that in order to balance the budget, we have to ration elderly people away from medicine and insulin. That's crazy. We
I would
don't
say,
have
if
enough.
anything, people need it most, especially when you're older.
Well, they're doing it for money, and if the people don't have the money, and it's Social Security and whatever. And in Obamacare, it talks about rationing, that the elderly and the infirm have to do without first because they aren't really useful. Go look it up. We may run out of these medications because a lot of them came from China, but we're not going to run out of frequency. And we have already tested pain pills, and we can give people a pain pill reaction from a frequency. We're still in the research stage of being able to do this. So a little bit at a time. Nobody would believe this. We've always been like 20 years behind what everybody else accepted. So I think with this big coronavirus coming up, we knew that in order to bring everybody together, something really world shaking had to happen. I was hoping it was aliens. I'd really like to see that happen. The space people come back down and say, "Oh, you're our children. We've come to tell you something, blah, blah."
We know about your history. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. You see things like these ancient buildings and stuff they couldn't possibly have built. There's somebody behind all that. There is a guy by the name of James Oates. He's from Brown University. He's a doctor. He took a group of his students out in the last summer, and they did a project on plants. And they found within the plants there was DNA code. And the code was such that it fixed computers. It was a batch of codes that
Was it genetic plant code that was able to fix like computers themselves, like by using that, like a replica of the genetic plant DNA?
Yes. It was a code that man already discovered that was already in plants. It's awesome. It's in one of our articles about robots, because I think we can combine those two studies, because here we are being able to give people back their sight and regrow teeth and give insulin by sound. That means we are math-based. That if our genetics have a math code that can be reconstituted, yes, we found what the code is. He found it in plants, we found it in humans. And I think as soon as that gets around the planet, that's a reality, our maker will show up. But, that's kind of a sideline to what we're doing. I realize totally that what I'm doing is much more than I ever learned, much more than I ever knew. When I was teaching at Georgetown, and a lot of doctors in the room, and somebody would ask a question, I'd think, I don't know that. And then all of a sudden I'm over in the corner of the room answering the question. And I think, I have to write that now. That sounds really important. So it's something maybe from that very first encounter with that big silver thing that Ruth Montgomery verified, by the way. She talked about it and saying that I had met extraterrestrials, and I had agreed to share my body to do this work. And she didn't know me. And that, yes, it was a walk-in sharing kind of situation. So if I'm being fed information somehow, I'm going to ask them to hurry up. I don't think I'll make much.
I have read that it is common for many scientists and people in academia to, whenever you get like a download, that you are technically working with an advanced level of beings, right? Whether you can see them in physical form or not. I've heard that is a common connection.
I think it's energy.
That you mentioned it. Absolutely. Yes.
Energy. Think about telephones. Used to be one wire, one voice, and we had party lines. Now we have fiber optic cables. Just by tweaking the frequency a little, we can carry thousands of voices on one line. And I think may not be extraterrestrial, but other dimensional, right here with us at the moment. I've just had it happen too many times. I was trying to meet a deadline, and I was dead tired. I had to go to school full-time, I had a full-time job, I had 3 kids. And I was trying to do this, and I just like, if you want me to get this done, you better give me some energy. and the whole room sort of filled with this yellow light, and I worked the rest of the night. So what are we capable of?
I
It's
think
just,
infinite stuff.
it is absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all this stuff technologically, make a pill, get some ingredients, make a pill, and we could just punch in the number and have the pill. We're not there yet, but I certainly hope I help that happen.
I think the work you do, Sharry, I think it's phenomenal. And I think it definitely helps bridge the gap from where we are right now as a humanity, where we were 20 years ago, where we are now, to where we will become, where we're going. I mean, I think it's cutting edge work that you do. And I'm very happy to be able to talk with you about this work. And it's fascinating. I do have a side question, because you mentioned that you guys put someone inside of a pyramid and to see if their voice profile changed. Do you recall any changes when someone was inside of a pyramid?
I haven't looked at the data yet,
Okay.
but I will let you know, and we'll do another show.
Yeah, I think that would be fascinating, because there's so much information out there about pyramids and how they're able to like restructure and take away disease, and just the structure itself is geometrically amazing. So I would love to hear more about that, and you're always welcome to come onto the show whenever you have the time in your busy schedule.
I think the pyramids clear the path so that we can allow more energy in. I want to remind people to go to the soundhealthportal.com, go to services, campaigns, and look up coronal conflicts. Give us a sample of your voice. Tell us whether or not you have been identified as being active or not, and we'll send you back a report. We had a guy on one of the shows last Thursday, and he lives within 30 miles of that rest home for 11 people died that in Washington.
Okay.
And he was so afraid. But after we tested his voice and said, no, nothing there, he was so relieved. And I think this will help relieve some of the fear, because people are hyping this like it's something totally new, and it is, but it's no different from the flu in how people need to treat it, that they're infected with it. And it's different from the flu in that they're not going to make any difference in treating it like the flu. It actually is an allergen of some kind. And if they want, we can look at another template, hives. We have a whole bundle, hives and fatigue and radiation, because a lot of these people have radiation poisoning, glutathione based. What else is in that? Krebs cycle methylation mapping. So we can tell them how their body is prepared for this. And that's one of the things available. Just do the bundle. You have to sign in and have a subscription, but the first 30 days are free and you can still do it. And you can drill down and see where your body is vulnerable. If you want, I'll send you the catalog, and I'll send you the hour-long show that we did showing how we tested this guy, and you can post it for your people.
Yes, I can also link it in this, once we upload this, I can put it in the bio description. Sharry, could you tell us then, do you feel that there's like because you're from your research, you're categorizing it as an allergen, do you feel that only certain people will be susceptible then to the coronavirus then? Or can the allergen become more readily available to others due to things like a 5G tower rollout, and be activated by certain other interfering frequencies?
There's several different answers to that. One, last August, we put out an article about 5G and said it's going to make people susceptible to pathogens, and especially animals. It's going to make animals susceptible to rabies. They have published that in Nexus magazine. Let me write a note and I'll send you a link to 5G. Another one is there's a vulnerability for people with ACE2, which is an enzyme that most Asians carry. And that's in the article that I sent you. I think it's question number 2. And if people have their own machines, they can look at page 11 on that, and we actually give you the frequencies that will counteract this as an allergen. The other thing is that people with glutathione down, quercetin down, and histamine, because if you aren't using methionine and histamine, then you're more susceptible to creating reactions and creating mast cells, M-A-S-T. It's an allergen reaction that makes you vulnerable. So all that's in the article. I just updated it this evening, so I will send you the update.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I will put it in the link below. So Sharry, if we want to know more about your work, should we just go to soundhealthportal.com, or what is the specific URL address?
Well, the soundhealthportal.com is an online workstation for people to do this on their own and learn about it. There's textbooks, there's tutorials, there's videos, so they can do this all on their own. But if they want to join us to do it, it's soundhealthoptions.com. Now, the class for this, I think it's the 16th and 17th. Look on our calendar. It's closed. There's 50 some people in it. We're thinking about opening another one just to deal with the coronavirus. If enough people want it, we'll do it. But there is information about class and signups and downloads and videos and articles. And so soundhealthoptions.com and then Sound Health Portal if they want to be autonomous about it.
Okay. And so can you tell us then, do you need to have any kind of special background to be a part of this program? Do you need to be a scientist, a mathematician, or can anyone learn this material and understand more about frequencies and sound and how it impacts their body and what is going on with themselves as well?
We've set it up so that if people want to be trainers and teachers and learn on the math, they can. And that's our 5-day Bara trainer course. But if they just want to punch a button and get an answer, and a lot of wellness providers that way, they don't have time to do all the math behind it. The master's course is just a push button. So I can send you the catalog link, and that has everything in it. And if not, write me and I'll try to answer your questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sharry, so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure to talk about frequency and sound and to know your story and learn more about the BioAcoustic Institute. It's fascinating work, and thank you so much for bringing this gift and to the world, truly. So
you made it easy. Thank you.
No problem. It's been so wonderful to speak with you, and I gladly welcome another conversation. So you're welcome to come on any time that you have available. So everyone, definitely check out the links that I will have in the bio here below. It's going to be worth your while, I promise you. Sharry's work is phenomenal. If you don't already, if you can't already tell. And if you like the work that I do here at 90 Degree Turns, I really appreciate all your support. I appreciate you sharing the links, commenting. I love having this kind of dialogue and kind of conversation that can open our perspectives and minds. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Sharry, once again, for coming on this show. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye. Talk to you later.